Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Patricia Mooradian, who serves as president and CEO of the Henry Ford. Patricia, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Aaron. It's really great to be here again for my second time.
Yes, and I am so excited. Not only, of course, our wonderful partnership, and the Henry Ford is one of our great creative partners, but just the fact that I have been able to be in the proximity of the Henry Ford, of your leadership for literally decades, and been able to see the impact both of the institution as a whole, but also your leadership on both our regional community and, of course, nationally and internationally. So I am very excited to talk with you, and especially about some of the unique things going on.
Well, thanks.
So I thought, though, first, for anyone in our audience who isn't familiar, because the Henry Ford is very unique and everyone in our region knows all, of course, about it, but thought if you could just kind of share the quick overview of what the Henry Ford encompasses.
Well, the Henry Ford is a 250-acre National Historic Landmark. We have 6 venues on our campus focused on American history, specifically as it relates to innovation, ingenuity, and resourcefulness. So we have Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation. We have Greenfield Village, which is our outdoor history attraction with 83 historic structures. We have our Benson Ford Research Center that has over 25 million archival documents that are open for public research. We run the Ford Rouge Factory Tour in partnership with Ford Motor Company. Even though we are a private 501c3, we do that in partnership with them. We have a giant screen theater, and what a lot of people don't know is we have a high school on our campus, Henry Ford Academy, and we serve about 520 9th through 12th graders. Great destination. Our mission really is to inspire that next generation of learners to be the doers and thinkers and innovators that we need in this world.
It is. So not to say you're just a little bit busy overseeing all of that, which is really extraordinary. But absolutely the creativity and innovation that is both reflected historically and emanates from the institution really is truly extraordinary. And one of the things that I love about the Henry Ford is that there are always new things either being incorporated in or developed, and the collaboration and partnerships that you do. And one of these key ones relates to the Jackson House. So wondering if you could kind of just share just historically what is the Jackson House, and how on earth is it being moved and transformed and being able to become part of the Henry Ford?
So I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's something that we're really, really excited about and worked very hard on. The Jackson House is in Selma, Alabama, and it was built in 1912 by the Jackson family, and it housed several generations of Jackson family members over the years. And Joanna Jackson, the only survivor of the line of Jacksons that lived there, and she had no siblings and no heirs. She called us and she said, "This house is really important. I'm going to tell you the history of it, but it belongs in Greenfield Village." And this was about 1.5 years ago. So we had to do our due diligence and research and look into this home. Well, it's extraordinarily significant. This was the home that Martin Luther King Jr. stayed in when he was planning the march from Selma to Montgomery for the Voting Rights Act and for equity and equality for everyone. He and all of his activist colleagues would gather around the dining table in this home, they'd sleep in this home. Many times the home was filled to the brim with people working round the clock. And the Jackson family cooked for everybody, provided for everybody while they were there. Joanna Jackson was a little girl at the time. She was 4 or 5 years old and remembers Uncle Martin very fondly and has lovely memories and pictures. But the extraordinary thing about this home and what's really unique for museums is when you identify an artifact of significance, the kind of history that a place like this has, where everything was preserved the way it was. So this home didn't change much at all since 1965, including the artifacts, the chair that Dr. King was sitting in when he was watching LBJ give his address, the dining table that they all sat around, the beds they slept in, the pajamas he wore, his handkerchiefs, his ties, the television, the telephone, many things in this home are in the exact place that they were during that time period. And Joanna's family, her parents, knew the significance of this. He was a good friend. They were very good friends. And they kept it intact. And when they passed away, Joanna made a promise to her mother, the last one to pass away in her family. And she said, I will take care of this home. I will do everything I can to preserve the legacy of this home. And when she called us, she said, Patricia, this home belongs to the world. It has to be in Greenfield Village. So she had done a lot of research on our location and what we stood for and what we do. And we went down, we had to make sure it could be moved, number one. We had to authenticate that everything was in fact what it was. And we couldn't be more thrilled than to be able to steward this home, not just now, but forever, in perpetuity for guests to come.
It's just extraordinary. And hearing you kind of talk about the history, right? And it's kind of, I was just, imagining and kind of illustrating in my mind being in that space and being able to see it and not just read that Dr. King did this or that, historically here's where, civil rights activists would meet, but to be literally physically in that space. There is something about that that just transforms history and somehow gives you a better sense of it. And of course, Henry Ford does that so well.
Well, and that's what it's all about is immersing people in that history. We do that throughout this campus. We want people to feel what it must have felt like, to learn firsthand what some of those stories were. When I went in this house for the first time, the emotion that overcomes you when you see it is quite extraordinary. That people will go through this house in Greenfield Village and will feel something pretty powerful and significant, and then they'll learn the stories. And Joanna is committed to helping us tell those stories and tell them. Her mother wrote a lovely book about the experiences, and we'll use that book as well as just hundreds of documents and photographs and things that they preserved that we'll be able to use as primary source materials. So we're excited to be able to move the house, which we plan to have in Michigan by the end of this year, and but not up for the public probably for a couple of years, because it just takes a long time to reassemble. We have to figure out the location in Greenfield Village, exactly where, get the utilities, everything ready for a foundation. So it's quite the undertaking. It's a really big project, but a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. I will say that sometimes it is difficult to move a home, not just the physical structure itself, but the emotional part of moving something out of one community, especially a community as important as Selma is. But in order to preserve it and its legacy, we felt that this was the best thing for the home. We had extensive conversations with a lot of people around the country, historians and others, about our plan. And we have a group of pretty significant advisors who are helping us on this.
It really is extraordinary. And kind of looking at that, I just was kind of curious the logistical piece of this. So a lot of times people are like, so wait, you're moving a house. So just logistically, what actually happens with that? Is it just deconstructed and kind of, labeled? I just have my artist mind thinking, trying to, and just labeled and then reassembled, or how does logistically this happen?
Well, there's a lot of very, very talented engineers working on this right now. And we had to do everything possible to make sure we could do it and keep it intact. And indeed, it is possible. The roof, the chimney, the porches, they get removed and separately stored. And then the house gets literally divided into, this is a simplified version, by the way, and put on 2 flatbeds and moved up through 5 states, Michigan. And it's complicated because every state has wide load requirements and permits. So everywhere it goes, so we have to coordinate. There's a lot of coordination involved. But the due diligence is well underway. And we think that in the next couple of weeks, the disassembly will begin. All the artifacts have been fully removed from the home and are in a safe place here in Michigan already.
Well, it really is just extraordinary, and yet another example of how the Henry Ford is just one of the most special places that I've ever I wouldn't say visited, but experienced. It really is extraordinary, and
we are so honored, all of us, to touch this project, to work on this project, to work with Joanna, to be part of it is an honor. It's humbling, and we are so committed to being the best stewards of this project that we can possibly be, because we want this time in history that we're in now more than ever. It's so important to learn these lessons. We always talk about at the Henry Ford, we preserve the past, but it's only to make a better future. So that looking from the past forward and all the things that have transpired from that time period to now, how did we get to where we are? How can we collectively understand that history, understand where we are now, and then work and commit to work together to make it a better future for our children, for our grandchildren, for our great-grandchildren. That's what we do. That's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Well, it is truly amazing work. And unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all my guests, this type of work, obviously not only complex, but sometimes I'm sure some major challenges. And just as a leader, how are there any mechanisms you draw upon when times are hard to carry through with strong leadership?
The best thing I always say and for our team is communication, and not just an email, in-person communication. If you have identified a process and you've laid out your strategic plans and your strategic intent with clear goals and a way to get there, just communicate all through the process to iron out any hiccups you might have. It's really important to have that roadmap and to communicate throughout that.
Wow. Patricia Mooradian, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Gosh, Aaron, I could say the same about you. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing these stories to life for all of us.
Thank you.